Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining our Banking on Green Homes webinar from the Smarter Finance for EU Live program. My name is Johanna, and I'm from the Smarter Project and the Irish Green Building Council. Today, we'll be exploring key insights and practical strategies that we hope will leave you a little more informed and inspired. We'll start with Jeff Colley, editor of Passive House Plus, who'll present on what really is a green home and how people think about them and rate green criteria. Then we'll move on to Hanane Hayek from Certivier and the chair of Smarter Advisory Board, and she'll inform us on what is Europe requiring lenders and investors to do about green homes. And after Hanane, we have Pat Barry from who's the CEO of the Irish Green Building Council, and he'll show us what the IGBC is doing to bridge the gap from standard practice to full green home certification. And finally, Alessandra Hadesiu of NSAFE Capital will introduce a new training program for green finance coming out of the Smarter project. So I'll let Jeff go ahead.
Thanks very much, Johanna. So I will just quickly try and come over my inherent tech limitations and pull up the presentation. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Here we go. Okay, are these slides displaying there? Wow. So, well, that's a great start. So look, essentially, yeah, I want to talk about what a green home is and what people think about green homes. I am the editor of a green building magazine. I have been since 2003. Green building it's still probably not cool, even though it's nerdy, but everyone's talking about it. But it certainly wasn't cool when we started in January 2003. We rebranded the magazine in 2012 to Passive House Plus. We're Passive House Plus Sustainable Building, to give it its full title. We expanded into the UK. And since, over the last 22 years or so, we have published literally hundreds of projects, most of which will be dwellings, in sort of warts and all detail, pioneering attempts at green building. And we've learned an awful lot, I think, in that time about what works and what doesn't, and about people's preconceived notions about green homes and so on, which have changed over time to a certain extent. But I'll just get straight into the substance of this because we don't have much time. The first thing, I suppose, is that there's a popular preconceived notion that a green home is just about an energy rating. I think this is in part a response to the success of the BER or EPC, depending on your country. It's a very well-known sort of means of assessing a property, but it doesn't capture the full picture, just captures one dimension. We've identified 14 characteristics that we've talked about in this project in no particular order. So what I'd say here, yeah, look, green homes, they're better investments. They're better built, they're healthier, they're cheaper to run, and they're designed to surpass ESG targets facing investors. Essentially, the benefits that they can provide include reduced mortgage default risk, reduced rent arrears and void rates, and reduced maintenance costs, while protecting lenders and investors against the risks of being tied to stranded assets. They're homes for life. Peter Pan was a liar. I mean, he was in denial, at least. We do grow up, and with a little luck, we grow old. Your home should be able to adapt to the way that your kind of life changes over time for you and your family, including accessibility and reduced mobility. It's biodiverse, delightfully so. So there's no getting away from the fact that when you build, you are disrupting natural habitats, and you can lose them to a great extent when you build new things. Improving, first of all, trying to reduce damage, and then improving the ecological value of an area is fundamental in terms of allowing plants and animals to flourish. This sustains healthy ecosystems that improve human health and adds delight to your family's life. It's safe from radon. This is an issue that will resonate more in certain countries than others. Radon gas is an invisible, odorless, radioactive gas that's estimated to be responsible for over 220,000, and potentially considerably more than 220,000 lung cancer deaths per year. It can sneak into homes through tiny cracks or holes, through sort of construction defects, for instance, and present a real risk to occupants. And without due care to air tightness and ventilation strategies, radon levels can increase in well-insulated homes. So care is really required in this regard. Green homes are naturally bright. We spend 87% or so of our time indoors. Green homes, they let the daylight in and they help us keep us feeling bright. Exposure to daylight helps us sleep better at nights, and improves our mental well-being. What I'm talking to you today from an energy efficient home that has lots of aspects of a green home, but it's darker than it should be. Hence why you'll see the electric light on, just to stop me looking even more sinister than normal. It's low embodied carbon. So the embodied carbon of a building occurs across its lifespan. This is the carbon that's involved in manufacturing the materials and technologies that we use to build buildings, and in maintaining and ultimately disposing of buildings at their end of life. Calculating embodied carbon is key to reducing these impacts, and this area is sort of in relative terms in its infancy. It's about reducing car dependency. Green homes enable and encourage car-free living by tapping into networks of schools, shops, public transport, and amenities nearby. Like, if you can easily walk, cycle, or take public transport to work or school, it gives you more time for other things, improving the quality of your life and not, wasting your life stuck in traffic. It's quiet. Green homes are like earmuffs that block out noise from neighbors or the hubbub of the road outside. So noise avoiding this and the calm of this contributes to our sense of security, privacy, and comfort, and increasing our physical and mental health. You can avoid that kind of disruption. It's about water, to the quality and efficiency of how the quality of water and the efficiency of how we use it. It should be safe to use. In green homes, water is tested for chemical and microbiological quality, hardness, and odors to make sure that it's safe to drink. The larger the volume of hot water from your tap, the more energy you use too. So in green homes, water-saving devices give a sensation of high coverage of water while using less water, and the difference can be profound, as much as 40 litres per minute. It's about cutting waste. So the construction industry produces 30% of all waste generated in Europe. And much of the material from old buildings can be recovered and recycled if it's properly considered at the right time. Green homes are designed to encourage recovery, reuse, recycling, and reduction of waste, both during and after construction. It's about being braced for an increasingly volatile climate. So while green homes must minimize contributing to climate change, they must also be built to withstand the climate change that's already locked in and the weather volatility we're starting to get. Green homes are located with flooding risk taken into account too, and designed with future weather extremes in mind. It's about good indoor air too. There's 2 steps to good indoor air: dilution and source control. So source control is about the materials that we build with and avoiding using nasty things, and burning unhealthy fuels. And dilution is really about ventilation. It's about ensuring that you get rid of the stale air and replace it with fresh, clean air. It's about reducing greenhouse gas emissions too. Over 1/3 of Europe's emissions come from heating, cooling, and powering buildings. That's not to mention getting to and from them. But if you go about this the right way, it doesn't have to mean sacrifice. Cutting emissions can actually improve your quality of life while keeping money in your pocket. And it's about comfortable low energy homes, creating those two things together. An uninsulated shed could achieve a zero energy score if you're willing to freeze in winter or boil in the summer. So green homes are about being low energy but comfortable. So if using things like orientation, building form, air tightness, insulation levels, cold bridging prevention, and energy efficient yet effective ventilation while meeting the building's reduced energy demand with renewable energy technologies. So we did a survey to kind of, because there's a difference between what we, understand to be the fundamental characteristics of a green home and what people think. And as part of this project, Smarter Finance for EU project, we started a survey a few months back to try to find out. The responses we have to date, we have 331 responses, which have a heavy lean towards Ireland and the UK, so that needs to be taken into account. With the majority from Ireland, UK next, and then continental Europe, in the region of sort of over 50 responses. I actually repeated that graph here, so apologies for that. We also divided them, if you look at the graph on the right here, by interest. And there's a fairly even split between people with just a personal interest in green homes, people with a personal and professional interest, and then some people solely with a professional interest, which is interesting if you describe yourself that way. We ranked them then, the 14 different characteristics that we identified, based on which characteristics people regarded as essential, important, not important, or don't know. Shockingly, I think reduced car dependency came last. Only 22.2% of respondents viewed this as an essential characteristic. I also, with a few of these, we've subdivided them by regional insights to see if there was much difference. And funnily enough, there wasn't in this case. You'll see that it's below 30%, whether it's Ireland, UK, or continental Europe. So we still have this cognitive dissonance where people think they can, have a green home and get out the front door and maybe get in an SUV, or better, I suppose, an EV, and drive long distances. And that, I think, is problematic and needs to be worked upon. Next was supporting biodiversity. Big enough uplift, but 37% viewed it as essential, which is still troubling that something about biodiversity would be so low down. Again, I think there's this sense that the green home is about what goes on inside the building or how it's built, rather than what goes on outside, directly outside. The idea of green home being a smarter investment came 12th. Just under 38% viewed it as essential. And yet the data is starting to indicate that there's a significant uplift, at least based, for green homes, or at least energy efficient homes. Acoustic comfort was next. Perhaps unsurprisingly, it's not something that people tend to regard as essential. Construction waste reduction. I'm going to whistle through these because we've got a lot of ground to cover. Construction waste reduction was next at 10, so we're getting to the top 10 now. Again, similar sort of statistics. Lifetime adaptability was up on that at 44.8%. Low carbon materials construction at 46%. Low radon levels at 46.7. This was an interesting one because there was some variation by region. So we'll see when we look at regional insights. In Ireland, nearly 70% of people viewed low radon levels as essential, whereas in continental Europe, it was just over 40, and in the UK, it was under 30. That's in part a reflection of the geology of different countries, but it's also the fact that I think we've had successful information campaigns in Ireland, for instance, to make sure there's a very heightened awareness for it. I do have some concerns that this is not being, like the UK, for instance. There are reasonably high radon areas in the UK, and it's such a cheap thing for people to inspect, that I think it's something that and it's such an important thing that I think it's something that people really shouldn't be ignoring, wherever they are, because the nature of the ground beneath your feet is not homogeneous, and you can get quite significant variation. And water efficiency and quality came next. reasonably consistent in the different regions in that regard. Natural daylight next, again, most of the fields were reasonably consistent from one region to the next. 62% regarded as essential overall. Climate resilience, 68% essential. I think the UK was top on that one, interestingly, by quite some distance. Low greenhouse gas emissions was 68% as well, sort of tied with that. Uh, Good indoor air quality was second, 84.5%. Although interestingly, in continental Europe, it was lower than in Ireland and the UK. A reasonable, good, I think 5-10%. I think 10% or so lower. And we'll see this here. In fact, yeah, it was in the region of 70% versus 80 to nearly 90% in Ireland. And then the top one by a clear distance was thermal comfort and energy efficiency. So that message, I think, has really resonated. It is the case that it's still the case that operational energy use is, a very significant part of the impact of a building. And I think it's revealing that the top few insights that we get here indicate, in general, like, energy efficiency first, indoor air quality second, that you have appreciable benefits of a green home are coming in first and second, with low greenhouse gas emissions, which doesn't have an appreciable benefit for the user, still ranking pretty high. So it's not that people are ignoring those issues, but I think there is a lesson from this that if you give people, a notional green home standard, has to have appreciable benefits, such as comfort and indoor air quality, for instance, for the occupants. Then I'll just finish by saying that the survey is still live. It's you'll see the URL for it there. It's still possible for people to fill it out. We'll be very interested in what people have to say. And other than that, just reach out to me. You'll see my details there below. Thanks very much.
Yes, thank you, Jeff. So I'm gonna follow up on that. Now, Jeff gave the definition of a green home, or of a green building for that matter, and so that we are sure that we are actually meeting these criteria and we are doing things right. There's what we call the green building certification. And the certification is a sign of quality that will ensure that we are actually following up on these criteria and doing everything right. It's, of course, a voluntary scheme, and it's known for giving the competitive advantage where certifying a building and getting it verified by a third party will be enhancing the building's economical performance in terms of asset value, but also the performance of the buildings in terms of, like Jeff said, keeping money in the pocket, because the building or the house will be performing better in terms of energy bill. So today the EU framed these definitions by the EU taxonomy, which is a regulation that's mandatory and that will help eventually direct the capital towards this type of sustainable homes and sustainable activities, and to fight greenwashing and to make the difference between the houses that might declare themselves green and the houses or the assets that are actually green and are worth investing in. Now, why is this important, and why is what is the role of green building professionals and the projects and initiatives such as Smarter? The real estate has too many stakeholders. It's one of the most complex economical activities that are identified in the EU taxonomy. Without going into details, the financing comes as one of the too many stakeholders on the chain, and however, without money, we are not able to move forward. And this being said, it also has a very complex value chain where we are required to report very differently on each of this of the project's level. So the building itself might be certified, but that is not enough. We also need to have the construction product certification to be able to use these products in the certified buildings. And the certification of a building does not liberate the real estate portfolio owners to report under the CSRD or under the EU taxonomy alignment, and the financial sector is still required to report under the SFDR. Without going into all the details, the idea is that for each of these reporting procedures, we do have also a verification. So we do have a very multi-layered verification process that's in place that starts by a verification of the implementation of the procedures by the entity, and that will end by a verification of the accuracy and the consistency of the numbers, because today there's a shift in the paradigm. Before, we used to certify just to say that our building is working properly and our building is meeting all the requirements needed. Today, we are doing this because we need, after every certification or after every verification, to eventually report on financial KPIs. So I will stop just a little bit on the step 2, and it's the assessment on the entity's procedures to comply with taxonomy regulations. And since this is where the technical criteria are, the EU taxonomy technical criteria for the buildings in construction or renovation or even acquisition, this is where the green building certification, the third-party verification comes at handy, because it's essential to be sure that everything that is being done on the project is actually verified by a third party. Now, that being said, we are also working hand in hand with DG FISMA, who is endorsing this specific position on EU taxonomy verification and assurance, because it's actually, we do have a lot of challenges with the EU taxonomy today. We do have a lot of legal texts. We do have a lot of conformity that is needed on so many levels. And the verification process is quite complex as it is, without going into the technical details. Now, Jeff presented in 10 minutes a work that might take a lot of time to put in together, to be sure that everything works together nicely. And that's actually something that can take life and can take shape during the construction process. So verifying the technical criteria by certified third parties, or by green building councils, green building certifiers, or green building professionals, is actually the next step, so that this whole regulation can take place and can take shape nicely together. Over to you. I think, Alex, you're speaking next. You're on mute.
I think that it is Pat's turn right now, and I'm going to close with the presentation about education.
Sorry, Pat. So over to you.
Thanks, Hanane, and two great presentations. I'm going to talk about what we've learned over the past couple of years through Smarter4EU, and working with financial institutions and working with developers around green finance, and what our next steps are, what we've learned, and what our next steps are. So I suppose we developed the Home Performance Index, a full spectrum certification system for homes nearly 10 years ago. And there was already certification for, was well established for commercial buildings through LEED and BREEAM, but there was nothing really for homes, or specifically relevant for Ireland and Irish building regulations. So the intent was to develop something that's was quite streamlined and didn't require developers to do additional, they could use their existing building regulations compliant documentation to show compliance. So the intent was that it would be relatively simple. But I suppose over the years, because we've got a lot of large scale home builder and developers. You know, we started to add complexity, and as well as aligning with Irish building regulations, we started to look at taxonomy at the levels framework. It was accredited by GRESB, and also, we started to add a little bit of complexity to it. But despite that, there's 28,000 homes registered with the scheme. Now, it takes quite a while for all of those to come through because of the planning system. And to give context, Ireland built 30,000 homes last year. Now, we do actually, because of a growing population, need to double that over the next couple of years. So the challenge is how we're going to do that. And of those 28,000, possibly about nearly half of those registrations are from the two biggest developers in Ireland, one of which is the Land Development Agency. So, so a lot of what we have certified to date would be large-scale apartment schemes, maybe 200 to 500 homes. And some of these will be funded by international funds. So but there would be a smattering of local authorities, such as Dublin City Council, Wicklow County Council, who would also have certified schemes under the Home Performance Index. But in order to deliver those 64,000 homes we need every year, small, medium enterprises are going to have to play a part. And I suppose they access most of their funding from the banks, whereas the large-scale developers would access funding through a variety of means. And we had built a very good relationship with banks through Smarter4EU, and I suppose they were giving us feedback because they had aligned a number of their products with the Home Performance Index, and they would typically offer something like a 10 basis point discount. But they expressed some concern that they weren't really seeing much uptake from the smaller developers, those who build maybe 100 homes or 200 homes a year in small schemes around the country. And, you know, part of it, they suggested, was the complexity or the number of indicators in the scheme. And there was also the Construction Industry Federation were also concerned that they wanted to access the smaller SMEs to access discounted green finance. So we held a round table last year, bringing everybody together. So we brought we have a limited number of large banks in Ireland since the financial crash. So we brought the two main Irish banks, the State House Building, the Home Building Finance Ireland, which is the state bank that funds housing, the Construction Industry Federation, some of the private funds, and to get a bit of a dose of reality, some of those smaller builders that we were targeting, or that we would like to see engaging with sustainability, because the banks they really do want those small scale builders to access discounted green finance. And we identified a number of issues. Well, one, I think we all agreed that the 10 basis points as a discount on a developer loan is just too small. It wasn't going to encourage those builders to engage in any additional level of complexity. And I suppose there was a suggestion that the HPI system is already too complex. And I know Jeff mentioned the fact that connectivity is quite a substantial contribution within our scheme. And many of these developers, small scale home builders and developers, would have purchased sites that had planning permission that wouldn't be very well connected. So they found it challenging to engage in a scheme that prioritized that. Funnily enough, EU taxonomy, we thought the banks would be find that a real strength to align with it, but they said that would actually make the situation worse, because if we fully aligned with EU taxonomy, then it would make it even more complex for those small scale developers to align, because some of the indicators are quite difficult to implement, such as the biodiversity and the waste indicators. So they saw, the banks also saw an issue with reaching scale then, if it, you know, if green mortgages were only aligned with a taxonomy. So we needed a way of bridging the gap. You know, how do we stop perfection being the enemy of the good? How do we develop a pathway for developers and small scale builders to go from just business as usual towards a much higher level of ambition? So we put together a proposal, and this was really kind of a two-way street. Well, we said to the banks, well, if you can be more ambitious in what you're going to try and offer to developers, and if we can, and if we can get the builders to at least come in at an entry level and try and ramp them up through the steps to a greater level of ambition, we might engage them more and help educate them around sustainability if they could, we just get them started. So what we proposed, or what it's looking like now, is we keep our 3 levels of home performance index. That stays pretty much as it is, but then we develop 3 entry levels with the idea of giving options for banks to say to a new developer, well, at least start with step 1 and we'll give you discounted finance. We'll expect you to move up to step 2 fairly shortly. But at least get started on this journey, and then we can build towards fully taxonomy aligned certification under the Home Performance Index. So, I mean, if you look at the current Home Performance Index, there's a lot of indicators, and then within those indicators, there's a lot of different levels. And speaking with some of the small scale builders, what they need is simplicity. They don't use lots of consultants if they're building 10 or 20 homes. So they struggle with that. So they want some of them want something more prescriptive. Just tell us what to do, maybe, you know, set it out. So we align a couple of the indicators with taxonomy, energy and water, but then they have a smaller choice of indicators that they can access to get on the pathway and build towards ambition. So I suppose we're currently engaging the small scale, those smaller builders, to see that that's difficult because they're quite busy and they're doing multiple jobs and they're running around sites, and they struggle to get time. So we're currently engaging with them. But I suppose the good thing is the banks now are seeing, okay, this could be a great way of getting them started. And they're starting to see the potential of green mortgages, because to date they have been offering green mortgages on just energy efficiency, and they see this a way of building scale to allow additional indicators to be included. So that's where we are hoping to head, because we need to enable, we need to bring everybody on the journey. And at the moment, we probably have that disconnect. We have the big builders, and we're doing all whistles and bells, and then we have the small builders who may be doing very little or nothing, and we need to bridge that. So thank you very much for that. I shall stop sharing.
Thank you very much for everybody's presentation. I think it's a good intro to what is going to follow. I hope you can see my screen slowly in full mode.
Yeah, we can see it.
Hopefully. My computer is perfect. Wonderful. So thank you very much for setting the scene, basically, with all these stepping stones. What is sustainability from Jeff, in a sense, and how do we look at buildings and how is this being perceived? With Hanane going through the entire certification process and why is the taxonomy important and why the green building councils as organizations are the stepping stones and good collaborating partners for the financial sector, actually, and with Pat ending with presenting a little bit how the certification is working in the case of HBI and how the relationships with the bank with the different banks in Ireland and the different developers are currently working. So I'm going to come now and kind of present one of the big achievements of the Smarter4EU project in the sense that we have developed what we are calling accredited finance professional green home training that is actually bridging the gap of all these elements that were presented by my colleagues prior. So understanding the EU taxonomy, why is it there? The significance in the context of climate change, and also the importance of certification. So these are all stepping stones in terms of understanding for the financial sector, actually understanding what are the important elements, how they intertwine, and why is this essential for them to have the information. Relying on certification bodies and organizations is, I think it's a great and fantastic tool, and is there clearly there's a dependency and a need for certification for the financial sector. But at the same time, the financial sector needs to start being more involved and having actually the necessary tools in order to be able to understand the processes and understand what they need to report on, and also why is this important for their own benefit in terms of assessing their portfolio, understanding what the impact is in terms of climate change on different assets, etc. So the role of training and education in this case clearly is awareness, is skill development, is the continuous improvement. I think that I don't want to dwell too much on these points because I think that they're quite, they speak for themselves, to be aware of what's going on, to keep up with the latest regulation, with the different changes. We see that at the European level Commission, things are quite dynamic when it comes to sustainability. We have different reporting directives that are into play that are tackling and targeting basically the financial sector, especially the banking sector, with also quite a bit of a movement. So the omnibus package that was released a couple of weeks ago, the different like the due diligence directive that is expanding right now. So clearly there are a lot of movement on the market. So this is why training and education is very important for the different financial stakeholders, so they are aware of what's going on, but also at the same time build upon the different skills or know-how that they would be able to benefit from this particular training that I'm going to present at a later stage. And the continuous improvement, I think, today with the world being so dynamic, and we need to constantly improve and constantly have and acquire different set of skills. So the banking sector, the financial sector is not outside of that. So they're falling under the same umbrella as everybody else, that they need to continuously improve and make sure that they're keeping up the pace with what's going on. So in terms of a bit of background of how this training was actually we came into play to actually deliver it and also create the content. This is the result of a couple of roundtables and workshops and surveys that were sent to the different stakeholders in the financial sector at the different EU level, different countries, member states. So we had a couple of exchanges to understand where, let's say, the gap is in terms of know-how, but also we relied a lot on all our partners within Smarter4EU, but also the advisory board that is made out of, I think, the vast majority of green building councils at the EU level, to understand what do we think that is necessary for the financial sector to know, but also we took, their direct feedback in terms of gaps of know-how that they have. So we kind of developed the content like that. We are having a total of approximately 10 courses, and I'm saying approximately because we're also having, a one of the courses, it's interchangeable and it's tackling the hybrid blended finance. So for social housing, that is more tailored to the public sector. And that's why we're actually having 11 in total, but for the banking sector, that might not be a relevant course.
Hi,
And
sorry, Alex.
yes,
Sorry to interrupt. Just that
yes.
it's only the first slide that's up on the
Oh,
screen.
it's only the
If you
first
can,
slide.
yeah.
Okay. I'll stop sharing and start sharing again. Apologies about that.
No worries.
It's always like that when you're trying and you're testing it, it's working live. Yeah, sometimes there's a problem. I hope that you
Perfect.
can. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Cool.
that's
Sure. Thank you very much for interrupting. And if it happens again, just please just kind enough interrupt me so I can I know what's going on, because I can't see my own screen. So that thank you very much. So that being said, as I mentioned, so we are having a total of 10 courses, approximately 50 hours of instruction. It is a course that is ideal for the banking sector, analysts, insurance companies, marketers, and basically all decision makers in the financial service or real estate investment sector. We are having a flexible implementation type of approach. I'm going to have more details when we're going to talk about the platform, but the idea is that the courses combine leading international practices and locally relevant ones, which means that we're actually collaborating with all the local GBCs, yeah, so the Irish GBC, Spanish GBC, etc., in order to make sure that let's say the information that is a little bit more tailor-made to the specificities of the member state are being taken in account. And we had a self-paced training approach, which means that these courses are on a live platform, and different users can actually log in and out and take the courses at their own pace without needing to dedicate 50 hours or let's say 10 hours or 8 hours a day, but they can interrupt and retake and restart the training and even go back to it after a while just to refresh their memory should some information be escaping them at a certain point. Now I changed the slide. I'm not sure if that is being reflected currently.
yes, we can see it.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, that's fantastic. So this is an overview of all the courses that that we're having currently that we have developed. So as you see, also the names are quite intuitive. So sustainable site selection and management. This is focuses on choosing and managing the sites from a sustainability point of view to minimize the impact, the environmental impact. Real estate loan portfolio reporting. This is really targeting just the banking sector and the financial sector. So it focuses on all the reporting requirements that are related to the green real estate. So EU taxonomy, SFDR, CSRD, etc. This is one particular course that can be switched in with the hybrid funding of green affordable housing, which is the next one displayed. In case, for example, we would have a project developer that would like to take this course, they would easily switch in between these two courses, and be able to still get the full picture, but not go into the intricacies of the reporting requirements for the banking sector, which is quite technical. In relation to the hybrid funding of green affordable houses, this is a presentation and of a course that is kind of presenting the combination of the various funding sources to support green affordable housing projects at the EU level. Underwriting consideration for green homes. This is addressing the challenges that are quite unique in the terms of underwriting and the criteria for green homes. It's again quite technical. It talks a lot about loan to value, total cost of ownership, and other KPIs that are similar, and how one assesses what are the underwriting consideration when we are looking in a green home. This is again quite let's say a technical course that is targeting again the banking sector. Sustainable resources and materials. This is emphasizing the use of eco-friendly materials, green, how to select, how to resource efficiently in the construction sector. This is again a course that is going to empower banks to understand why and why the sustainable selection is very important, and why let's say, the extensive work that basically project developers are doing when it comes to building a green home. Marketing strategies on residential green finance, as the name says, it's all about how do you market and how do you present this to the end client. How will you able to sell better, and why are you able to sell better a green home compared to a regular home? Circular economy for buildings promotes the recycling, use in the building process to support sustainability. And we're having financial consideration for green buildings. This is covering mostly the financial aspects, incentives for green building projects, exactly all the elements that Jeff was talking about. So not only the financial aspects, the total cost of ownership, the impact on health and well-being. So it's the entire bouquet of, let's say, advantages that you would have from a green building. Green home certifications, this is a course where we're presenting an overview of the different certifications that are out there, obtaining them, which one aligns with the EU taxonomy, the different standards. It's clarifying a little bit between the jungle of certification and making the different stakeholders and understand which one would fit better, maybe their own case. Green design principles. This involves the obtaining of certifications that align with the taxonomy and standards, but it also underlines the fact that it's very important that at the pre-preparation stage, not at the post-construction, but the pre-construction stage, certifiers such as green building councils need to be involved, and how that process is being it's being held. Managing green building projects, this focuses on the interdependencies and realities in managing the green project. How is that actually happening, and why is that important? So kind of this is the full 10 courses that we have developed under Smarter4EU. And now a little bit of how and where one can find the courses. This has been and is launched on the Climate 64 platform. We are having also integrated exams in the end, or quizzes of each module. The courses are split on different modules, and the different modules are split on different short little lessons that are delivered on a video mode. We're also having materials that can be downloaded, so the PDF of the presentation can be downloaded for different users, so they can actually read at their own pace. And there's also an interactive feature on the platform where one can ask questions, and they're going to land towards the different trainers, and then one can answer particular questions. We have automatic course transcripts, and right now we're currently still a little bit refining, let's say, the subtitle audio translation functionality, because we know that in terms of language that needs to be delivered, sometimes it's always easier to deliver it in the local language. Currently they're in English, but there is a subtitle functionality right now that we're still trying to refine and getting better and better. The beauty of taking the course is that the accreditation awarded, there's an accreditation awarded upon the successful completion of the courses. And right now we are still on the, let's say, on the piloting phase, in the sense that we are still having a couple more weeks in which we're going to engage with internal and external stakeholders to provide feedback on the material, on the courses. This is based on a signed MOU, and that would give the different users access to the courses for free. By the end of May, the courses are not going to be able to be taken for free anymore. So if anybody is interested to provide feedback and sign an MOU of engagement with us, we are happy to provide them with access to the platform, and they can still provide feedback and at the same time still have the accreditation and upon the successful completion of the courses. I'm just having a very quick example here of, and afterwards I'm going to end my presentation, as I don't want to take too much time and leave a bit of space for Q&A. It's just an example of the core structure of the real estate loan portfolio reporting and governance. So, for example, you have this four modules: understanding the taxonomy, EU taxonomy application in the banking sector, and the reporting overview and portfolio assessment. So how is that being done? And then module 3 would be sustainable finance disclosure regulation and the European Banking Authority Pillar 3 ESG disclosure. The way that they intertwine between themselves, what are the differences and what type of templates one needs to use, what is taken in consideration in one case and what is not in the other case. And then module 4 would be the implementing of robust sustainability reporting. Again, it's a wrap up of the EU taxonomy, the green asset ratio, the denominator and the denominator in the case of the banking. What are we looking at and how are we actually getting to, let's say, a green asset ratio that is a healthy number and the correct way of assessing one's portfolio. So again, this is quite technical, but we have also other courses that are, let's say, more friendly in terms of information, and it's still setting a lot of the stepping stone, the information that one needs to have in order to be able to navigate this, the sustainability and the green space. That is it from my side. Thank you very much. I hope that you saw the entire presentation, and happy to take any questions at their end. Thank you.
So I don't see any questions, but I guess I would just say we're going to finish probably in about 3 minutes time, but I would just say what, for Jeff, that survey, what is going to happen to the results of that? What is the kind of outcome that's going to happen out of that one? You're on mute.
That's because I didn't want to field the question, Joanna. Yeah. I think it'll inform our understanding of how different kinds of users are different kinds of stakeholders are engaging with green homes, their understanding of it in different countries. So the idea should be that we can, we already have communications kind of collateral that's available now, and that we'll be sharing on the Smarter website, for instance, that can give you insights on generally where the people who responded to our survey, where their heads are at and where their understanding is at. And I think I was surprised, frankly, to see how consistent the results were in many areas. Looking at continental Europe, admittedly the sample sizes were lower there, but still, in general, the responses, with the exception of, say, radon, for instance, were pretty uniform. I would have expected to see in the early data, we saw signs, for instance, that in some parts of Europe, there was a recognition that reduced car dependency is an important, like an essential part of a green home, but it's kind of panning out pretty consistently. I think we can use that to do two things. One is to meet people where they're at, right? And try and focus on the things that matter to them. And second, if we think these other aspects that people are not valuing as essential, maybe important rather than essential, for instance, but in the same way that, in a way that we feel they should, maybe that asks some interesting questions that we need to address, like, why is that the case, and what can we do to sell the benefits of those things more to people, frankly, rather than people feeling, for instance, that we're going to be trying to literally wrestle their car keys out of their hands,
Okay, thank you. And there's another question about what will Irish banks give to small builders as a reduction in rates to smaller builders? Is it still at 10 points?
Well,
Pat, would you like?
I can't really answer that on behalf of the banks. I suppose the whole idea is that it's a two-way. We're trying to cut out a pathway to higher levels of ambition. So the idea being that if the builders will go for a much higher level of ambition, they should get a much higher rate of discount. So it should be proportional to the effort. So hopefully, once we've developed the game as a two-way conversation between the banks and the builders, we can try and negotiate a really strong discount for deep green development.
Yeah, I just add here, just sorry for cutting in, because I know we've got to wrap up, but if a bank just focuses on the likes of an energy rating for a green mortgage, for instance, they may end up unintentionally supporting new homes, or subsidizing, should we say, new homes, the construction of new homes that do not comply with building regulations. It's possible to get a pretty good energy rating and still be a way off complying with building regulations in terms of energy performance, in terms critically of ventilation. You know, the smarter builders are realizing pretty quickly that if you don't get these issues right, if you don't ventilate buildings, low energy buildings properly, you run into significant issues. And the Department of Housing, to its credit, updated the building regulations to address that. Generally, we're seeing really good improvements in those regards in Ireland, but there are notable exceptions, and there are schemes being built which are, you know, maybe getting an A rating, for instance, on the, in terms of their energy performance, or BER as we call it in Ireland, but you know, still, I can see from mining data behind the energy ratings, still not complying with building regulations, and still not meeting the ventilation requirements. And that's why these kinds of rating systems are really important, to guide the banks away from those kinds of risks.
Thank you. We have come to the end of the webinar, but if you have any questions, you can email johanna@igbc.ie or kleena@igbc.ie, and we'll send everyone a link to the recordings. Okay, so thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Everybody,
Thank
have a
you,
lovely
Ireland.